I'm going to be putting Premier League strikers into a tier list. I'm going to be putting one Premier League striker from each club into a tier list. The tier list will be weighted heavily on last season performances, but I also will be taking into account previous seasons that they have had and their overall potential and ability. So the tier list, we've got S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier and E tier. And by the end of the tier list, I have to have at least one player in each category. I hope you play along at home and don't judge my opinions too harshly in the comments. So let's jump right into this. So we're going to be working away from the bottom of the Premier League table all the way to the top. So starting at the bottom, we've got Oli McBurney for Sheffield United. Last season, 21 games, 6 goals, 3 assists. And he's going to go straight into the E category. Oli McBurney's just not been a great striker for a couple of years when he's been in the Premier Championship. Very different story. But in the Premier League, he's just not proven it. The past couple of seasons, he's been with Sheffield United in here because he was in here and they were last in the Prem. And now again, not too great statistics. Next up is Lyle Foster of Burnley. 24 games, 5 goals, 3 assists. He's once again in the E category for me. Haven't seen much of him this season, I'll be honest. But even if he bumps them stats up a little bit, gets a couple more goals, he could work his way into the D. I know he's quite a young striker, so maybe been a bit harsh on him, putting all the weight on Burnley's back. But yeah, once again, he's not an overall great striker. Next up, we've got Clinton Morris now of Luton. 38 games, 11 goals, 4 assists. Now, he's played every single game for Luton in the Premier League this season, and that has got to count for something. 15 goal contributions as well, which is very, very solid for a Luton Town player in the Premier League. So I'm going to put him in the D category. I think he's better than the other two players we've mentioned so far. You got to think of it. If he was to move from Luton, what team would take him? You would think another relegation, just above relegation side. But the fact he's played every game as well, consistency, available for every game, and that's got to count for something. So Morris is in the D category for me. Next up, we've got Chris Wood now of Forest. 31 games, 14 goals, 1 assist, and he is also going to go in the D category. Chris Wood's one of the players that people have made a mockery out of, especially when he went to Newcastle from Burnley. But this season at Forest under Nuno, he's definitely turned his career around. He could have had even more goals than he's had now, but 14 goals and 1 assist for Forest is very, very solid. A team that struggled a lot this season. But once again, I don't think he would be able to do that in another team, and if he did, it would be another relegation to the low end of the table side. So for me, he's in D. Next up is Ivan Toney. 17 games this season, 4 goals, 2 assists, and I'm going to put Toney in the C category just for the sheer fact of his stats not being great, but obviously he was suspended for the first half of the season, which doesn't help anything. But obviously I'm not just taking last season into account, I'm taking into account previous campaigns. And for me, Toney was definitely last season, the 22-23 season, one of the best strikers in the Premier League. This season obviously struggled to get back up to pace with things. So we know the quality's there, so I can't put him any higher than C. It was on the edge, teetering on the edge of D, but I thought that was too disrespectful to put Toney into the D category, so he's going to settle for mid-table C. Next up, we've got Calvert-Lewin of Everton. 32 games, 7 goals, 2 assists. He's going to go in the E category for me. He could have easily gone in the D category, but Calvert-Lewin's just not been good for a couple of seasons now, has he? He surprised me with 32 games, to be honest. I don't think he played that many, because normally he's quite injury prone. But since Ancelotti left and had that good run of form, Calvert-Lewin's just been below average at best in times when Everton need a goal scorer. He's not turned up to the occasion, so you can't be any higher than D. I can settle for that, but for me, he's an E striker. Next up is Cunha from Wolves. 32 games, 12 goals, 7 assists. Very, very solid player. Not just a goal scorer, but his link-up play is brilliant as well. He's probably one of the best progressive players in the league for driving the ball forward, and for me, he's going to go in the B category, our highest position yet. I really like Cunha. I think he's a top quality player. Once at Atletico Madrid, and they bought him for 50 million, so that says it all, doesn't it, how good people actually do rate him. And for this season for Wolves, he's been one of the talisman for them to have a decent season, so he's going to find himself in B. Next up, we've got Muniz from Fulham. 26 goals, 26 games, 9 goals, 1 assist. He's going to find himself in the C category. Only really came into fruition in January. Bit of a fringe player before that. For me, he had that really good purple patch. Dropped off a little bit towards the end of the season, but as you can see, maybe next season kicks on even further. You can see that he's got some decent quality. It's all about next season showing that and cementing his place as the main number 9 for Fulham, competing with Jimenez this season. Next up, we've got Dominic Solanke of Bournemouth. 38 games, 19 goals, 3 assists. Once again, played every single minute for Bournemouth every single game for Bournemouth this season, and he's going to find himself in the A category. So close to putting him in S tier, but I just couldn't do it. I don't know what it was. I feel harsh now putting him in A. So let me know in the comments if I've been harsh there and put him in A instead of S tier. Solanke scoring 19 goals for Bournemouth in a Premier League campaign is absolutely impressive. So maybe I have been a bit harsh. Maybe next season, if he does somewhat similar numbers, maybe not that high, but if he gets 15 plus, then we can talk about putting him in S tier. Or maybe he looks to get a big move from Bournemouth, I'm not sure. But with Bournemouth having someone like Solanke in the team, they're going to be safe for a long time. Surprised a lot of people this season, Bournemouth. People thought they were going to get relegated, but managed to comfortably stay in the league in mid-table. Next up is João Pedro from Brighton. 31 games, 9 goals, 3 assists. He's going to find himself in the D category. Now, Brighton have really struggled this season compared to the past 2 seasons where they've been absolutely incredible. For me, I've just not heard or seen much about João Pedro this season. He's not lit the world on fire. His better performances have come in the Conference League, so for me, he finds himself in the D tier. Next up is Mateta of Palace. 35 games and 16 goals, 5 assists. Now, since the new manager coming for Palace, he has been absolutely on fire, and especially towards the back end of the season, the last 5-10 games, he's been absolutely banging in the goals. And I'm going to put Mateta in the C tier, just for the sheer fact, I feel like he is a very good system player for Palace at the moment, and if he does get a big move to another team, I don't know if he'll be able to replicate that, so maybe it is worth Palace even cashing in on someone and getting someone a bit more consistent than Mateta. Under the other managers, Hodgson and Vieira, he didn't show any of signs of these performances. So maybe he's just in a really good vein of form, because if I was to do this tier list in January, I would be putting Mateta in D, if not E tier, for a Premier League striker. Next up, we've got Mikel Antonio of West Ham. 26 games, 6 goals, 2 assists. Now, Antonio is going to go in the D tier. Not been unlucky with injuries this season and not played his best football, but under past couple seasons, he's been very, very solid for West Ham. For that definitely keeps him out of the E tier for them stats. So I can't be too harsh on Antonio. And West Ham still had a decent season. They finished in the mid-table. Next up is Rasmus Hojlund of Manchester United. 30 games, 10 goals, 2 assists. Now, I'm going to put Hojlund into the C tier. Being a Manchester United fan myself, I know the lack of service that Hojlund's had this season, and also the start of the season wasn't the greatest for him. He went so many games without getting a goal. It started becoming a meme where Shawn Mills finally got him his goal. And I'm going to put Hojlund in C tier. I feel like the potential's there for Hojlund to be a really good striker for Manchester United in the future. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. I feel like maybe I'm over egging it, putting him in the C compared to some of the people I've put in D as well. But as a United fan, I couldn't put him any lower than C. He's just more than just a goal scorer. He works hard off the ball. His link-up play does need to be worked on, but you can see the potential in Hojlund. Next up, we've got Isak of Newcastle. 30 games, 21 goals, 2 assists. For me, he's got to go in S tier. Our first player going in S tier. Newcastle have really got a really good player in Isak. Linked to the likes of Arsenal this summer. It's going to be hard to keep hold of him because I think Newcastle do have to sell one of their big players to meet financial fair play rules. And they will not be looking to sell Isak in a hurry for a cheap price. Especially this second half of the season, Isak has absolutely set the world alight for Newcastle. Banging in goals left, right and centre. Technical ability as well. Isak's got very underestimated for being 6'4". Great with his feet, lightning quick, but got enough burst of pace to beat a man. And for me, he's one of my favourite strikers to watch in the Premier League because he can do some magical things with the ball. That's why he's the first player in S tier. Next up is Nicholas Jackson of Chelsea. 35 games, 14 goals, 5 assists. Going to find himself in the C tier. Now, Nicholas Jackson's had a very, very solid season for Chelsea. Them stats suggest that he's had a good season, but he could have had even more goals. He misses so many big chances in games. If his goals are up to like 18, 17, maybe he can find himself in B. I just feel like Nicholas Jackson misses a lot of chances, and this is not the first player we're going to be talking about missing a lot of chances either. But overall, I feel like Nicholas Jackson has had a very solid season for. Next up, we've got Son of Spurs. 35 games, 17 goals, 10 assists. We're going to have Son in the B tier. Now, Son is technically a winger, but has been playing a lot of football this season down the middle after Harry Kane has left Spurs. If this was a winger list, maybe I would put Son in A tier, maybe even S tier, but as a striker, he still has very good attributes to be a striker, but his positioning back to goal is not the greatest. Can't really hold the ball as well as other players in this list, but his finishing and his one-on-one dribbling is very, very impressive, and he's got some decent stats this season. But I feel like Son is better suited as a left winger than a striker. Next up is Ollie Watkins, 37 games, 19 goals and 13 assists for Aston Villa. Another one of the players that are going to go in S tier and probably my striker of the season. Getting them stats for Villa and getting them into Champions League football is very, very impressive. Villa have overall been very, very good this season. Surprised a lot of people in their position in the league table, and it's been totally deserved. They've played some great stuff. Watkins getting 31 goal contributions, 32 goal contributions in 37 games is absolutely ridiculous. Joint with another man yet to come in this list. Watkins is probably my striker of the season. He's got left foot, right foot finishing locked down. He's been very much more consistent in front of goal this season. Watkins Troy Deeney even said he's a winger playing at striker, and then the game later he bags against Arsenal. So proving the haters wrong this year, Ollie Watkins, and should find himself in the Euro squad for England, in my opinion, the backup to Harry Kane. Next up is Darwin Núñez, 36 games, 11 goals, 8 assists. Going to find himself in the C tier. Now, like Nicholas Jackson, very similar. Misses a lot of chances, Núñez. But the difference between him and Jackson also, he's unpredictable, and he does create a lot of his own chances because of his sheer rawness and pace. But for me, Núñez, at times, Liverpool fans must get frustrated with Núñez for his decision making as well. He misses the easy chances but scores the hard chances. He's one of them type of players. But for me, he has to go in C tier. Next up, we've got Haaland from Man City. 31 games, 27 goals, 5 assists. Even at Haaland's bad season, he's still getting more goal contributions than games in the Premier League, which is just mental to think about. Like, this season, he's not been the greatest. He's had injury problems as well. And he's going to find himself in the S tier, obviously. Cannot put Haaland anywhere else other than there. Been a bit more criticism of Haaland's all-round game this season, especially from Roy Keane. He said he was no better than a League 2 player for his all-round game, which is not true, but he was just over-exaggerating a point that Haaland still needs to work and develop on his game, which is definitely understandable, even though Haaland is very young still, so there's still plenty of time for him. Nowhere near his peak yet. Probably overall the best striker in the Premier League, but this season, Ollie Watkins definitely tips him to that. And to end off this list is going to be Kai Havertz of Arsenal. Played a lot of his games as an 8 and as a striker this season, so I wasn't sure because Jesus has still been injured. So I'm going to put Havertz as the main striker for Arsenal. 37 games, 13 goals, 7 assists. So he's played pretty much all the games this season. Had a very slow start. He got that pity penalty at Bournemouth to get his career going at Arsenal, and that definitely give him confidence to kick on, getting 13 goals and 7 assists. And Havertz is going to go in A tier for me. Very, very solid, very versatile as a player. Great link-up play. Can miss the odd easy chance, but for me, he's a very, very solid, not a striker, but a false 9 type player. Definitely can play up top. Played up top for Leverkusen back in the day. Played quite advanced for Chelsea as well. And I feel like this season, Havertz has definitely proved a lot of people wrong. People thinking why as Arteta signed Havertz in the first place. No one really knew Havertz's position, but this season he's definitely shown his worth for Arsenal, even though he just missed out on the league title. I feel like Havertz has definitely been not a bad signing. It has definitely been a good signing for Arsenal. So that's my tier list done. Let's just run through it again then. So we've got in the E tier, we've got Ollie McBurney, Lala Foster and Calvert-Lewin. In the D tier, we've got Clinton Morris, Chris Wood, João Pedro, Mikel Antonio. In the C tier, we have got Ivan Toney, Muniz, Mateta, Hojlund, Nicholas Jackson and Darwin Núñez. In the B tier, we've got Mateus Cunha and Heung-min Son. In the A tier, we've got Dominic Solanke and Havertz. And in the S tier, we've got Isaac, Ollie Watkins and Erling Haaland. What you think of this tier list? Is there any obvious mistakes I've made? Who would you have moved around differently? Football's a game of opinions at the end of the day. These are my opinions on the Premier League strikers. Hopefully I haven't been too biased towards your striker. Put your striker down, put him too high, put him too low. I'm sure you'll let me know. If you have enjoyed, drop a like. Let me know what tier list you want to see next, and I'll catch you in the next one.